How y'all doing today? Excuse the mess. Been doing yard work and working out all day on my nice day off. Had 2 clients. It was a nice day to come outside, and I was that pile back there. That's from clearing out those beds over there. So y'all ignore that pile in the background, or y'all can look at it. That's looking at you. So, as I said yesterday, that does work. Okay. As I said yesterday, that's where that button's at. Okay. But yeah, as I said yesterday, made a couple of posts about it today. I want to carry on from Monday. Been getting a lot of requests. To get into the divine masculine and the divine feminine and how they come together and understanding the flow and the structure of the divine masculine and divine feminine concept and really breaking that down. And I said, okay, cool. I'm gonna get into that today. We gonna get into that today. String is hitting me in my damn arm, made me think it was a damn spider. Let me send out some of them things. You know, we send out the invites. So yeah. Send out some invites. To the ones in particular that Let's invite a couple of people. Had a couple of conversations this week. The work of us putting in work is never done. Let me go up here real quick, this S button. Do that right there. Bring everybody in. Woo! Been in the yard. Wait. One second. Been in the yard. Didn't want my blunt to roll away. But structure and flow. The wounded aspects or the unresolved aspects of self, those create an indirect flow or an indirect, or the indirect being based on impulse versus us coming into the state of direct, coming into that state of direct, the indirect being the impulse. One of the easier ways to look at it. Think about Mercury being in retrograde, then when Mercury goes direct. When Mercury goes in retrograde, or it goes into the indirect focus, it starts bringing up everything that you did impulsively, all the impulse buying and all the impulse shit that you did, all the emotional shit that you did at that certain point in time. When Mercury goes back direct, it goes into the state of its normal cadence and flow. When we're thinking about the divine aspect, coming into the structure and flow. Ooh, I'm all itchy. And sweating. When we come into the divine aspect, really understanding the difference between holding a space versus making room. When it comes to the aspects of what you're manifesting, what you're bringing into your space, things of that nature. If you didn't tune into the video that we did Monday, the lesson that we had Monday, we were talking about the aspects of emotional availability versus emotional free time. And it made me really think about that we're out of that balance of that cadence. Remember, since you've been down here, you've been doing your work, you're starting to realize from the traumatic experience, from your experiences from your childhood, from your experiences of your past lives, all of these things of that nature, you've been out of alignment. You've been out of alignment. You've been out of alignment. You've been the adversary. So everything you did was based on an adversary or based on an impulse or trying to make things work or trying to make things fit. And you're not seeing them shits fit the way you wanted them to fit. Those type of things we don't get into today. As I allow myself, my energy to center itself. And getting into these differences. The reason why you attract certain things. Remember, every attraction that comes into your space, everything that you attract is already in balance. It's already based on its positive and negative. You're not attracting negative. You're not If you stop thinking about negative, as it is an example, if you stop thinking about negative, that doesn't mean you're going to attract more positive shit. If you only focus on the positive, that doesn't mean you're going to get any less negative shit. If you're only thinking about the positive, it doesn't. They come to you already in that direct flow. It's in that direct based on the indirect being the impulse, or in the direct being based on the flow. Based on where you're at with your emotional aspect, your emotional availability. Once again, that was a video we did Monday. When you're talking about the aspects of emotional availability versus your emotional free time, and we broke down emotional free times, the aspects of your developing mode when you're developing things. When you're learning something, when you're in that free time, you're learning. That's that emotional free time. That's the energy that you brought to the space at a point in time that has not yet been defined. You haven't learned it yet. You haven't dealt with it. It's unresolved. Emotional availability is in the aspects of when you're creating your standard, when you've created your standard, when you've assessed your standard, you've learned your standard, you've created based into that standard. You're now in the aspects of your principles of growth. Holding a space is based in your principles of growth. That means using an example. Use an example. I'm gonna use the same example I used Monday. Using this example. For me, I know that I have created my availability for the aspects of doing my work. So between 11 and 6, I'm always open for bookings. 7 o'clock for clients that I've already had through cycles, things of that nature. Certain conversations are going to be had within that escape of time. That's my emotional availability. I have developed and I have mastered that aspect of that standard. I've mastered that standard. I've mastered that stability. I've mastered and created that structure. So now I'm holding that space I'm holding that space. I want you to understand this. I'm holding that space based on the availability to what I'm doing inside of that space. I don't have to put myself inside of, I don't have to put myself in a mindset where, damn, I wish somebody would show up, or damn, I wish this would happen, or damn, I wish this would happen. That's me being stuck on impulse. That's me being stuck in the aspects of the impulse. That's me being in the aspects of being indirect. When you're stuck in an indirect impulse, the best way to look at it is we're always looking for something. That indirect or the impulse nature is you're looking for something. You're in that longing or that needing for something to come into your space. You're wanting, you're longing. So I'm only doing this so naturally once you get it, you stop doing what you were actually doing. Or you cut it back, or you stop. And the only time that you come back into it, you think about the relationship. Use the relationship as an example. How many times you was in a relationship for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, years, whatever, how many years, and then at the end of the relationship, that's when you want to start getting yourself together. That's when you want to start getting yourself together. At the end of that relationship, that's when you want to start working out. I want to work out now, and I'm gonna start working out. I'm gonna eat better. I'm gonna really go. I'm gonna concentrate on going back to school. All of those things. Okay, it works. Go ahead and do it. But if I'm triggered by that, the reason that I'm doing it, and then I ask myself the question, why am I doing this at this point in time? Why wasn't I doing it before? Why am I doing it now? I have a concept in my mind for it. I have a concept in my mind. From the wounded perspective, from our wounded perspective, the wounded perspective seeks, or the indirect or the impulse, it seeks context to form concepts. Get into the aspects of how your mental works. From the wounded space or the unresolved problem, we'll say the problem, the quotient, the unresolved, the problem, you will seek context to formulate a concept. From this concept, I will create my ideal me. The ideal. I will create the ideal. So when I'm looking at the times when I would go work out, when I would hit the gym, when I'm going to go work out after the relationship, after the whatever it was, I was doing it based on impulse. And I needed that context to form the concept or the assumption of, if I do this, then I do this, then I'll get this. That's the old mindset. That's the mindset you've been using. That's the mindset that a lot of us use after the aspects of a traumatic experience. Based on the concept theory, if I do this, this, and this, I'm going to get this. So now we get into the aspects of, I'm not receptive. Everything is based on acknowledgement. Everything is now based on validation. I like the other one. Everything is based on this singular validation. Everything that I'm doing is now in this form is secondary. I become secondary. Everything else becomes primary. When I'm coming from a direct current, from the direct aspect, that means from the aspects of being direct, the healed masculine, the healed feminine, in that aspect. That direction, I'm either direct in the aspects of being receptive instead of reactive. And I'm now inside of a state with myself where I'm thinking about structure and what spaces that I hold. From the wounded perspective, you created room, you made room. I've used this mantra before, where one is not willing or direct in the aspect of purpose, their purpose, they will create reachability or reactability or a task. Indirectly, they will create a task. They will create a task that will form the concept of rationalizing why they are at what they're at and why they're doing what they're doing. Why is it so important to understand? You got to look at your entire environment. What you've done inside of your environment. When we talk about the aspects of honoring your thoughts, stepping into that aspects of discipline, understanding what you're attracting is what your thought process is in alignment with. Understanding the aspects of your that emotional aspect, the most important, the emotional semantics of why you're where you're at and why you keep attracting what you attract. And what comes into your space, either directly or indirectly. Nothing comes into your space if you're thinking, if my mindset is based on indirect. My mindset is based on indirect. Then everything that I'm going to attract is going to be based on indirect. It's going to be indirect. That's the current, that's the flow. That's that flow. That impulse. If I'm doing things based on being direct, everything comes to me in a direct flow. It follows the rhythm, and it's based on the spaces that I have held, the space that I have in holding. That means my principles based on my growth, my standard, my discipline, how disciplined I am. If I want to go further in the aspects of myself, now I'm in the aspects of, that's going to be, when we think about you healing, coming into this healed state with yourself, you have to get to a point to where your space and anything that you do creates that. Holding the space is self-healing. Holding the space is based on self-healing. Making room is based on an unhealed space. Making room, replacing. I can replace that nigga. I can replace this chick. Everybody got this. All of those aspects are based on making room. A lot of the things that we have quotients inside of our mind are based on making room for someone. I'm going to make room. I got to make time. Can't make time. You don't know what time is. I remember trying to make time for people. Can't make time. Because you don't know what time is. You can make time. You have a concept of time. If I'm going to make time for someone, in this example, if I'm going to make time for someone, I have a concept. I have an assumption and a concept of what that time will produce. Think about the 9-to-5 mentality. Think about your 9-to-5 mentality and you putting in work. If I'm going to make time for someone, I have a concept. Therefore, that concept is going to be based on seeking a certain context in order to make time for that person, to make time for the job, make time for whatever it is. Because this becomes where we're looking at the aspects of task. You'll create a task. He got to do this, she got to do this, they got to do this for me. Where you're not willing, that means where you're not direct, where you're not willing, you're going to create some form of reachability or indirect in order for something to take on to that time based on the context or the concept. I have a concept of what a relationship looks like. I have a concept of what a peace. I have a concept of what a relationship looks like. And based on my concept, I have to seek certain pieces of context in order for this relationship to look the way I want it to look. So I'm going to pour all of my energy into a concept, and what I'm thinking is chance. Is really just it's an unassessed probability. It's just an unassessed probability. It's just unassessed. You haven't done the work to that yet. So when we're coming into that space, I always hear aspects, people always talk about the aspects of you got to heal before you get into a relationship. I do not agree with it. I'm going to tell you why. For my mindset to say, remember, your subconscious takes off whatever you put in front of something and takes in. So if I say heal, I got to heal first before I get into a relationship, it takes off the heal and only takes in relationship. because I'm trying to separate healing and relationship, not understanding that I'm the primary relationship. I want you to understand this. I'm the primary relationship. I'm the primary relationship. I am the direct relationship. So when you hear something like that and you get triggered, when we get triggered by, you got to heal first before you get into a relationship, you're making your relationship indirect. You're triggered because it's you're indirect. You're indirect. The relationship with yourself is indirect. So all I got to do is heal or surface. This is when we're talking about the surface level, or become a concept of what healed looks like to other people. I got to become a certain concept. This is how you create making time for someone. This is how you get stuck, locked within a loop. This is how we get stuck within the loop. Just when this is when you start looking at, like, use an example. Think about every time you said you wanted to change. I have to change. I need to change. I need to change myself. I'm not liking the way I'm changing. And then everything around you starts to fall apart. The relationship that you was in for 2.5 weeks, or the nigga you was talking to, or the chick you was talking to for 3 months, all of a sudden y'all just stopped talking all of a sudden. Or the relationship with the aspects with your mother comes up, and you're like, all of a sudden, now in your mind, you're like, all of a sudden, my mom is now acting like this, or my family's acting like this about this. No. The moment that you said you wanted to initiate change, you switched everything from indirect to direct. I want you to understand how this indirect flow and the indirect and the direct flow works. Every time that you say you want to initiate change, you switch to a direct flow. It's no longer an impulse. So now everything that was based on impulse has to comes to the forefront. Everything you did based on impulse comes to the to that point. This is when you're looking at when Mercury goes in retrograde. Look at Mercury going to retrograde, Saturn going to retrograde. Whatever planet you want to look at going into retrograde, it's now in a state of being indirect. Now you're in a state of being direct. The relationship of yourself, the concept of the idea of you is now in direct flow. So everything that you did based on impulse comes to the surface in an indirect or an impulsive manner. It has to trigger you. It has to upset you. It got to make you mad. It got to make you feel some type of way. That nigga cheated on you. Shorty did what she did and had 40 different dudes. Whatever, her porno tape popped up. All of this shit come up. That's the impulse. All of that was done on impulse. All of that was done on impulse. The thing that stops you from actually stepping into the direct or the divine concept of the healing process is that you were used to impulse. You're not ready to let go of the idea of who you said you were. The idea of who you said you were. The idea of who you said you were. You got so used to using the idea of who you said you were for so many years. You got used to this idea of yourself. But now you're coming into the state of the alignment with me. This is where people get all love and lightish and be like, I only want things that are in alignment with me. And then after they say, I want things that are only in alignment with me, then they're like, now I have to protect my energy, but they go into a state of avoidance. See, everything triggered on either end. On either end of that spectrum, that's how you're getting triggered by that. Use the example. Where I'm at now with myself compared to where I was at 4 years ago. It's two different individuals. I don't have to constantly state. Mm-hmm. Ooh, yes. That's perfect. That line. When I was in a state with myself of basically the wanting things to be in alignment with me and not looking at the things that I dealt with, like use an example of aspect of you self-gaslighting yourself. If I ask somebody, hello hawk, y'all see my hawk in the sky over there? Yeah, I'll look up. See it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Your intuition is the opposite of that productive aspect of that impulse. When you're stuck in an impulsive nature, when you're stuck on your impulses, your impulse, the infatuation, you're stuck in automatic opposition. You're seeking the opposition. When you're listening to your intuition, you gotta first understand, like people like, I listen to my intuition all the time. My intuition was always right about every other nigga or every other person that came in my life. I knew they were right. No. You weren't listening to your intuition. You were listening to your trauma. You were listening to your trauma you were listening to your trauma on the keyboard. I'm gonna break out a difference. Your intuition is always going to take you outside of the spectrum of your safety net or your comfort. Gonna say it again. Comfort is this reaction. Comfort is your ability to react. That's all it is. Comfort is your ability to react, your ability to stay within the impulse. I'm going to ride the wave of the impulse. Your impulse, you look for you in the club like, yeah, I'm about to go find that fight. Yeah, I'm going to the club. That's the best. If I go into the club, I don't wear Air Forces anymore. But if I'm wearing my fresh white Air Forces, and my mindset when I'm buying the white Air Forces, from the time that I'm putting on the Air Forces, when I go to the store, cop them at the mall, when I'm in the mall, somebody better not step on my shoes. When I'm getting dressed at I'm not going to someone could walk on my shoes. I'm literally bringing that into my space indirectly. I'm bringing that into my space indirectly because it's based on the indirect flow, the impulse. I want to fight because it'll give me a reason to validate me being angry already, or whatever emotion I have not dealt with. When I'm going into the aspect, they do get stored in the same place. The thing is, in that space, when I become more direct, when you're becoming in the set of being direct with oneself, when you're being direct, when you're coming into the healed aspect of yourself, you're activating and holding a space. This is when we're talking about holding a space. If I'm making room, I'm indirectly saying that I want someone to step on my shoes. So I'm making room for somebody to step on my shoes. So I'm only going to be looking for niggas to step on my shoes. So my mindset is going to look at everything based on something stepping on my shoes. Why does my mind, remember, your mind records everything that you said. Your subconscious records everything that you said into that space. So now let's go further out and think about the relationships. You think about the relationship. I made a video, it's on my TikTok now. But I was talking about the aspects of that indirect always leaves you in a state of because and for. Concepts. The concept of because or the concept of for or because. Because is usually the past aspect, something in the past, and the for is aspects of you trying to look into the future. Self-sabotage. So if I stay in this state of this indirect impulse, my impulse takes the now position. The emotion, the unresolved, the traumatic experience takes this position. The last time I went to the club and a motherfucker pushed me takes the now position. And because of that and how I felt is always going to take center stage. I said this on Monday. You getting triggered is letting you know where you were not present. You getting triggered is letting you know where you were not present. The longer, if I sit in that space, and we're not just talking about, we can go from surface level all the way going deeper within, me sitting in that space is learning how to define the difference between my impulses and the difference between my intuition. But I have to define my impulses first. Now, when we think about impulse, biggest thing, coolest thing about impulse, when we think about impulse, every time we think about impulse, we always think about that jump or that need to do something. Impulse is not just based on the jump or the need to do something. It's also, impulse is the structure. Impulse is the structure into which I flow and how I'm conducive to the flow. Am I in the flow of the aspects of the context or the concept, or am I in the aspects of the direct flow of the structure and the discipline to some shit? So if I use an example, if I take the next 6 months, I've been taking the last couple of months really working on the aspects of, not just the aspects of in the business aspect, the healing and things of this nature, creating the classes, creating courses, things of that nature, but I've really been looking at the aspects of my personal space. What's in my personal space? Because one of my biggest traumatic responses was, I never went through my traumatic response. I always had the impulse to create room. I wanted to create room. I wanted to make room, create room, and have things fill in that space. So I was always stuck in this state of this concept of what the relationship was, the concept of what the job should have been like, the concept of what the crib should have looked like. I wanted a concept. And since I was stuck on the concept and acquiring things for the concept, I never established any discipline. So when things came in, as quick as some shit came in, that shit left out. Later on, I define it as you can't hold on to things. Things is all temporary. And I would lie to myself. I would basically lie to myself to make myself feel good inside of the space of why everything was falling apart. I didn't want to deal with what I really was saying. I wanted to stay indirect because it was because and for. I didn't want to be directly responsible. I didn't want to be direct with some of the things I was saying. I would speak around it in circles, things of that nature. All of this was from the concept of I was healed. I was in the healed state with myself, but I wasn't in the self-healing state with myself. I was in the healed state with myself, but I wasn't in the self-healing aspect with myself. The self-healing is sitting in the aspects of your direction, sitting in that direct structure and that direct flow. So everything that you do naturally becomes a self-healing aspect. It's kind of like when somebody says sex is healing. Yes, sex is a healing aspect. It's a healing fucking tool. It can heal, but you got to be healed first. You have to be healed in order to initiate healing. You have to be healed in order to initiate healing. Or all you're doing is creating room for more of the same. That's where the self-healing comes into play. Once you're doing aspects directly in the divine masculine aspect. The divine masculine, divine feminine. The divine masculine being the structure. The divine feminine being the being the flow. Being the aspects of the receptive aspect inside of that space. That aspect of that structure of the space that you're holding. But since we're so used to creating and making room, when we get used to making room, you got used to making room. I can guarantee most of your relationships was making room. The job made room. The relationship, whatever it was, I guarantee that shit you were making room for somebody. Because you had to stop. You had to stop, or you had to minimize the things that you were doing. Because you haven't created anything directly. It was all based on indirect. It was all based on impulse. You went to the gym for 3 months, you met someone, then you stopped going to the gym. You went to the gym for 3 months, met somebody, then stopped going to the gym. Why? Why? What happened before that? This is how you start bringing things into your, this is how we start bringing concepts and contact. This is how we start bringing certain concepts into our space. This is how you create this constant attraction of the same shit coming into your space every single time because you are stuck on a concept. I'm going to the gym based on a concept. I'm going to do this work based on a concept. I'm going to do these things that I'm doing in my life on a concept. So I'm going to have to seek a certain amount of context. So if somebody says, if I was, so use an example. I'm at the gym for 3 months, working out, I'm eating better, I'm eating differently, I'm eating better, things of that nature. This is how you understand if it's a concept. If I'm going to the gym simply to lose weight, if I'm going to the gym simply to lose weight, I'm going to the gym to lose weight. To lose weight. Everything else, I'm not going to look at. Everything else becomes indirect. That means I'm taking money from here to go to here. I'm taking money. What the hell just happened? I'm taking money from what I'm eating so I can go to the gym. I'm taking money from here to do this. I'm taking money to do this. I'm minimizing my space so I can live inside of this concept. I'm minimizing my space so I can be inside of this concept. My space becomes smaller. So now I feel, or I have this idea that my space is becoming smaller because I'm becoming this idea of becoming bigger, or I'm becoming better. I'm becoming better. I'm becoming more. Where in the reality, I have to become less first. And I've talked about the aspects first. Everything that you do, you have to become less first. You have to become empty first. If I'm always trying to do things to stay fulfilled, I'm trying to fulfill this, I'm trying to fulfill that, then after it doesn't work, what do you do naturally? It's like, use the example, off of impulse, making room for something inside of your space. It's not really you're not really in alignment with it, or you're out of alignment. You ever thought about it like this? You categorized everybody into your space based on that misalignment to keep you in this false sense of alignment. Everybody in your space is based and categorized based on a false sense of alignment. And then you develop yourself into that space based on your free time. So use an example. You went to the gym. I'm at the gym for 3 months. Now I'm working out. I'm eating better. My body's changing. My mentalities are changing, certain things are changing, and I'm getting noticed for it. Now I have a new idea of myself. I'm feeling myself. I got a new idea of myself. Someone likes the idea of me. Somebody likes the idea of me. They love the idea of me. I now react based to them liking the idea of me. So all of my unresolved stays unresolved. So now I'm in this relationship doing what I've been doing. But I'm trying to make room for them inside of my space. So the concept is, okay, cool. In a relationship with this person, me and Shorty's talking. The first time she come over, or the first time I go over there, whatever aspect, is during the week. It's a Wednesday. I know I got to be up at 4. I know I have to be up at 4. My mindset set to 4 o'clock. Got to be up at 4. I got to be to the gym by 5:30, 6 o'clock in order for me to get my workout in. I go to their space, or we go out. I go out, we go out. We go out, we have some drinks, we chill, eat dinner, whatever. Go back to the space. Go back to the space. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. At this point, I have a point to either I'm going to be direct or indirect. That means the impulse, or I'm going to act on the impulse of the being accepted, or I'm going to be direct. In that space from that trying to be accepted, making room for someone, this is when we start omitting. Oh shit, damn man, like, I'm gonna tell, what's my conversation gonna be like? Yo, it's been a while. She was cool, we had drinks, we did all these things. All right, you know what? I'm gonna give it a chance. I'm gonna give it a chance. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Lay up. The physical sex is amazing and it's all this shit. Now I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm waking up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. My body can't sleep past 9 o'clock. I wake up at 7 o'clock. Like, shit, I'm just laying there. I'm just laying there. I'm just laying there. I'm going to validate a reason. Well, yeah, validate my reason. I go on about my day. Because I followed the impulse. The impulse has to exist. Now I'm on my phone. Because I'm making room. I want to keep repeating that. Now I'm on the phone, and every time she texts, I'm answering. If she calls, I'm going to answer. I'm trying to make room for this person inside of my space. But I started, where did I start that? That didn't happen right there. See, when we're coming into the aspects of really assessing ourselves, really going into assessment, really going into evaluation, we got to go to the point before the impulse peaked. Because of our experience of not being direct with ourselves, the discipline with ourselves, we're not used to pinpointing where that peaked out at, where that conversation was had. Those questions weren't answered. What questions did I not say? What things were said inside of that space? So now, I didn't go to the gym Wednesday. In her mind, she created a concept. In my mind, I created a concept. All right, cool. I might have to cut back on the gym. I've been thinking about that the entire fucking time. I've been thinking about cutting out the gym the entire fucking time. Every conscious, even when I didn't have it, that thought process in the forefront or in the now, at some point in time in one of my realities, we're not in alignment. We're in alignment with that thought. This is the aspect of becoming direct in the aspects of your space. Me being in that indirect space with myself, it was easy for me to always be like, all right, cool, I'm gonna start going to the gym. So now, this is when you have that thought, okay, you didn't go to the gym that night. So then the next night, y'all hang out and chill. You do the same thing. Then you missed the gym that day. Then you missed the gym the next day. Then after about 3 weeks then went by, or a month then went by, you haven't been going to the gym. After a whole damn month that went by, I ain't been to the gym in a fucking month. But what have I replaced it with? Impulses. Everything that I replaced that space with was based on impulse. I never asked the question. I never asked any of these questions like, yo, I like to work out. I work out this time in the morning. I was stuck on the idea. I was becoming the idea for the space, or the idea me, or the concept for the space. This can go in the other direction as well. You know you never went to the fucking gym a day in your damn life. But you meet Shorty at the health food store, and then now you're like, okay, cool. You met Shorty at the health food store, and you don't want to seem like you don't know something, or you're not being direct, so you don't want to seem like you don't know something. It's your first time picking up Black Maca, and your first time picking up these supplements, and she's like, ooh, I've read about Black Maca. I've read about Maca. In your mind, indirect, based on impulse, ooh, this is my time to shine. So now I sit inside the space with myself and I'm like, yeah, Black Maca has all of these different Black and Mac. I can intellectualize it because I read about Black Maca, but I haven't used it. But I haven't used Black Maca before. So now I'm like, yeah, Black Maca does this, this, and this, this, and this, and I can intellectualize it. But I haven't used it yet. But since I'm inside of this space where I'm afraid to be direct and be like, I haven't used it, but this is the stuff that I read about it, da 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 da, and building a conversation, building a base, building a foundation. I'm trying to IKEA my way through the situation. Yeah, I use Black Maca in my smoothie, all these things that I haven't done yet. I'm trying to say that I've tried to done, because I'm trying to create this concept or this idea, or project this idea that I'm actually healthy as fuck. Knowing the night before I ate fucking ribs, or shit of that nature. Because I'm stuck on trying to create an idea in this person's mind. A perception in this person's mind. I'm trying to attach to them. When you're stuck in a state of being indirect, you're seeking attachment. You're seeking to please. This is when we go into the aspects of, you're seeking to please a certain concept. And as long as that concept or that impulse stays there, I can now flood this space. Now I'm flooding this whole space with everything. I'm flooding this space with everything. But here's the thing. The peak of that impulse is going to die out. The peak of that impulse is always going to die out, because it was always based on indirect. I was doing it because of the last time and for the first time. It's because my mind is stuck. My subconscious recorded when the first time I wanted to go to the gym, the first time I wanted to work out, and I was in a relationship. I was like, yo, we should go to the gym together. And the first time I'm going to the gym with somebody, and the experience I had at the gym, it wasn't the best experience. They said I was pushing them too hard and all of this shit of that nature. And then I got triggered and I was like, oh my God. So now inside of this space, indirectly, a chance to be direct, I don't follow it. So now I'm inside of that space and I'm like, yeah. Because all my mind is stuck on the attention that I'm getting for, oh my God, somebody actually wants to do something that I want to do. So now I can attach to it. Somebody's in this space with me. Somebody's in this space with me. Let me make room for them in my space. See how you make room for somebody inside of your space? You're trying to make room for them inside of your space. Trying to make room for them inside of your life. Instead of understanding the aspects of holding a space. When we come into the aspects of the direct flow, the direct structure, this is the aspect that I've created. There's a space. The space is automatically secondary. That space is secondary. Holding a space for somebody, that is a secondary narrative. My primary relationship with myself, my primary standard, my potential based on growth, my aspects of my principles based in growth, my principles based in my growth, me becoming better, me becoming healthier, me becoming now in that direct flow, because now I'm in a state of learning. I'm now in a state of learning. When you're thinking about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, it's always in the structure of learning. It's always in the flow of the receptive aspect of the flow. Receiving and actually listening. Reception and actually listening. This makes me feel some type of way. When we're in aspects of the direct flow, it sits you inside of a space of receiving information. And now I need, what structure do I need? It's kind of like this. Use another example. If I'm opening up a company and I don't understand nothing about money, my indirect shit was like, okay, being indirect, your job was your job. All you had to do was show up to your job, work the hours that you needed to work, get paid what you needed to get paid. Let's just saying that you got paid what you needed to get paid. You sat there in your job, you got paid what you needed to get paid. You got paid every week, you got paid. Okay, cool. Indirectly, that's what you became codependent on. Your job paying you. So in order to fulfill yourself, in order to fulfill that space, basically everything inside of your space was based on how much you got paid. How much money, how much energy was coming into that space. And based on how much energy, i.e. time, was coming into that space, that's when I filled my space. I filled my space based on what was coming in. But I never learned how to structure it. I never learned how to structure it. I didn't learn structure. I didn't learn standard. I didn't learn how to stabilize anything because I was stuck on the impulse. I was stuck on the impulse. Oh my God, I gotta make it happen this way. Okay. So now I've built my entire space on needing things based on that indirect impulse. So now when I get into a relationship, or anything that's evolved, is based on indirectly, and it's going to be based on indirectly keeping me separated from myself, my primary relationship. This is how we get stuck. When you get stuck in that cycle of, oh my God, I followed the impulse. They said this, this, and this. I'm over there now. Or they did this and this. They can come over here now. Because you're trying to make room for them inside of your space. The concept of a relationship is always going to be the concept of a relationship until I learn the relationship with myself. The concept of a relationship is always going to be stuck in concept mode because I have not learned the concept. I have not learned the aspects of my true feelings in my relationship with myself. So since I'm stuck in the concept of my relationship, a concept of what a relationship should be, everything that I do based on the concept will be looking at the context in order to create the idea or the identity to fit that space. It's why motherfuckers right now are vegan. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's why motherfuckers right now, you'll sit there and you've been vegan for 4.5 years and you don't know why you're vegan. You don't know why you're vegan. You're plant-based and you're vegan. But you don't know why if I ask somebody, why are you vegan? All they can give me is concept. They'll give me concepts because my blood and da-da-da, this and this. And they said if you eat this for 6 months, your body changed. I didn't ask that question. I asked, why are you vegan? See, when we come into the aspects of not really understanding ourselves, we always stuck inside of we're not used to being direct. You're not in the aspect of being direct. Because to be direct, I have to surrender listening. I have to surrender trying to validate the context. I got to surrender trying to validate I got to surrender. I'm not surrendering. So then we go further out to the aspects of the submission, the lack of submission. Anything that I want externally is going to be based on a lack of. So when I became vegan, when I was vegan, became plant-based, the reason that it rooted with me is because I wasn't lacking anything. But the reason you have to understand, the reason when you're stepping into something of that new aspect, that new space, you have to realize at first the reason that you went into it is because you did it based on lack. You didn't like the way your body felt. You didn't like the way your body felt. You didn't like these aspects. I didn't like the way my body was feeling. I didn't like this. You were acknowledging that there was a lack of, you were acknowledging lack of something. And it's okay. You have to acknowledge that you were lacking something. You lacked the understanding. You lacked the information. You lacked something. You have to understand that you were doing it based on that. That's me going into the state of the assessment. Because if I'm not going into that state of the assessment, then I can't become direct with it. That means I can't implement my intuition. My intentions will not be clear. So I don't grow. Nothing grows inside of that space. So now naturally, me being vegan and not doing the internal work first, and then something as simple as when I broke down, because I still do nutrition builds with people. The first thing, every time someone asks me like, yo, being vegan is hard. When you're sitting in the space and it's not a concept, this is how the natural flow. When you're becoming direct, you become honest. Yo, the first time when I became vegan, you're not trying to look for the aspect and trying to like feel that space. I was sitting in the space and I was like, the first time I remember I was in the Uber, I was getting off work. They were going to drop me off at the little Walmart up the street from my house. And she was like, yo, how did you become vegan? I was like, in my house, I threw everything out. In my house, I removed all of the dairy products and all of the shit inside of my house. In my house, I was vegan. In my house, I was vegan. Outside of my house, I was a vegetarian. In my house, I was vegan. Outside of my house, I was a vegetarian. Inside my house, my emotional availability was based on me learning the aspects of being vegan. Outside of my house was my free time, or the emotional free space where I was vegetarian. So I was developing. Outside of my space I was in development mode. Inside of my space, I was in the aspects of applying. You have to allow yourself to apply in your space to your sequence. When you're coming into the direct flow in that new structure, yeah. So now when you're going into your space and you're changing that narrative, remember you have to create the new structure. The thing that a lot of times we get stuck in when it comes into the divine feminine and divine masculine is that we try to hold it down here. We still try to hold it to the old narrative. The divine feminine is this and the divine masculine is this. We still try to separate it. You're realizing that as you're coming into this whole aspect with yourself, you're bringing these into balance. But that's why they're separated, so I can see them separately to bring them into balance. That's when that's the primary relationship now has to change. Yep, everybody want to have an opinion. Oh my God, I can't believe you ate that. This is a lot of times where we get stuck in the they, the them, the they, the them, and all that aspects. You haven't built that structure yet. You haven't built that structure within yourself. It's kind of like when you're going into a space of relationship, that relationship with yourself, the telltale times of the relationships that if you're being direct with yourself is really understanding the point of impulse is not just you jump to go do something. This is the next part. The aspects of it's not just you jumping to go do something. It's also the impulse where you don't want to do something. Use the example. If every time you woke up and you said every time you said you're going to wake up, you said you were going to sit down with yourself and do a self-reflection and you're going to write into your journal. Start journaling. But then you don't do it. That's an impulse. It was an impulse. You're looking for an impulse. So now, since you already made this statement, I'm going to start journaling my thoughts. I'm going to start journaling my shit. And you're only used to sitting in the impulse or the concept of it. You don't have a concept of your own you don't have a concept of sitting in that stillness. You need something to make you want to write into your journal. Now you are in the relationship, problem with the kids, problems in the relationship pop up. Now you want to start journaling. Now I'm going to sit down, I'm going to try to journal. You didn't create that space yet. You didn't create the space. You didn't create a space to do that yet. You got all the adornments. You went and got a journal. You went and got some candles. You went and got a nice little sitting space. You created a nice little sitting space. You may have saged it. You got some incense. Did all the other stuff. But you're not present inside of that space. Because you're doing all of that based on impulse. The only time you want to journal is when the relationship is over. Man, fuck my last nigga. Now you want to go journal. Man, fuck that bitch. Now you want to journal. You only want to do it based on the impulse of something being indirectly forcing you into that position. You're not used to being direct with yourself. So now 5-6 relationships later, you're sitting there with yourself like, man, what if someone asks you, what did you learn about every relationship? You're like, I learned not to trust motherfuckers and not to be so nice and not to be no. You were never nice. You were never authentic. You were never authentic inside of your space. You were people pleasing. You were using trauma responses. You were trying to validate. You were trying to make room for things inside of your life because of that feeling. Every time that feeling of being alone came up, you didn't want to sit with that feeling of being alone. So in that space, that moment that you had the impulse of you felt that you were alone, you decided to, instead of writing in the journal prompt to yourself, journal sat right there beside your phone. Your journal sat right there beside your phone. Journal sat right there beside your phone. But you picked up your phone and you texted it, you put it on Facebook instead of writing it down in your journal. One of the biggest things, me learning that aspect and now teaching that aspect and providing that to clients, is one of my favorite things to give to my clients is writing that letter to yourself. Whether it's a letter to your heart, in the last class that I did, ain't afraid to admit that shit either. I was, whoo. What the last class that I did, the Tantra 888, the assignment that I gave out was writing to your heart. One of my favorite things to give to my clients is writing a letter to yourself. That aspect is meant for you to have to sit inside of that space. It's meant for you to sit inside of that space with yourself, like, and writing through the emotion. Writing through the emotion. Now go back and that's like, use the best way to think about that. You made a post on your shit that's going to come up in your memories from 4 years ago where you wrote and you don't even remember writing half of the shit that you wrote because the impulse or the concepts of your emotions wrote that shit for you. And now you sitting there reading it and now you like, I can't believe I wrote that. I'm not there anymore. I need to protect my energy. No. You're not going to be protecting your energy. No. The reason that came up to you is because it's time for you. You were triggered by it because you weren't present. The emotion was present. You wrote a fucking 3-page post. You wrote until that shit letting you write no more. No paragraph breaks or anything. That's how you know you wrote it emotionally. No pyramid, no breaks in the paragraph or anything. And you wrote all that into that space. And then you felt good. You like, whoo, I feel good. No, you just emotionally dumped. You were emotionally, I felt good for venting. You weren't venting, you were emotionally dumping. You're used to emotionally dumping. When it comes to understanding the semantics of the aspects of you doing the work with yourself, that emotional aspect down here in your lower aspects is your emotions. That's the higher aspects of you tapping into your energy and working with your energy and understanding how your energy is coming to you and understanding who's having conversation with you. The spirit is direct as shit. The spirit is direct as fuck. It's just that you're so used to an indirect narrative playing in your mind. You're so used to the indirect narrative playing inside of your head to make you feel safe with yourself. For that safety. And I keep saying it, I'm going to say that every damn day. Comfort is reaction. You were used to that comfort being reaction. So every time that you got triggered, you were like, yo, let me step away. It was good for you to step away, but what did you do while you stepped away? What did you do? Did you go seek stimulation or did you go seek substance? Seeking stimulation is seeking something to validate you. Seeking substance is seeking something that's gonna force you to get closer and closer to yourself. When you look at the aspects of the relationships that you were in and why you was in that relationship, the shit that I was in, the shit that I was doing, the shit that I was always doing, and always doing the same thing. I had to boil that shit down to the most concentrated narrative of realizing like most of the shit that I did was based on because I was bored. What I was calling boredom was boredom was a concept. This is how we start understanding and utilizing boredom was a concept. I don't know how many times a motherfucker can say words are spells, words are spells, words are spells. A spell is a concept based on a certain intention. That's all a spell is. So it ain't scary. Oh, it's your solar return. Happy solar return. When we going through the aspects of that concept, the word being the spell, all that is a concept set to an intention. So if I use the aspects with myself of boredom, and I've defined boredom based on a certain intention, when I'm bored, I'm actually lonely. I don't want to face that I don't want to face the actual emotion of loneliness or disregard or whatever traumatic response is behind it, I'm just going to call it boredom. And since I'm bored, what do I do when I'm bored? I seek stimulation. So since I'm seeking stimulation, let me go look on my Facebook feed. Or let me go entertain something. Oh shit, I entertained this conversation with this person. We're having a whole damn conversation. It sounds very, very good. It sounds very, very, very good. I'm not asking any fucking questions. Because if I ask a direct question or I become direct, even I'm not going to set clear intentions. My intentions aren't going to be clear. I'm not looking for structure. It's kind of like when motherfuckers be like, you got the rigid nigga, the rigid real nigga, and then you got the, I'm a free spirit. I'm a free spirit. I don't need nothing to do this to me. No. No, 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 no. I did that free spirit bullshit. I did the rigid. I did the rigid. I was the rigid nigga. I was this free spirit and shit. That was a fucking lie I told myself. Because me calling myself a free spirit, I was only free from the space because I'm thinking about the shit that I've been through. Remember, it was a because. I had a concept. I was a free spirit based on a concept. It was a concept that I formulated based on my unclear intention with myself of, I'm a free spirit. Can't nobody hold me back. But I'm not dealing with I'm not dealing with the unresolved issues. I'm not dealing with the unresolved issues. My unresolved always creates my space. Your unresolved always creates your space. As long as you have unresolved in that space, as long as you got that unresolved playing back there in your background in your space, that's what's creating your space. As long as the unresolved is still present, my because, I'm always looking forward. I'm always looking forward. So now everything that I bring in is going to be based through the impulse. So now we use words like, this one over like, I want reciprocity. All I want is reciprocity. Okay. All right, cool. You want reciprocity. Bet you want reciprocity. You want somebody to give you what you give them. But you have no idea to understand the aspects of the energetic aspect of it. It has nothing, the physical shit is only, the physical shit becomes what the physical shit is based on, the physical shit only exists based on what I defined it as. The physical shit only exists as what I define it as. So if I energetically, I'm an overgiving person based on this feeling with myself of, I need my life to be better. I know what it feels like to be, like, I'll use an example. When I was homeless, both times I was homeless. When I was homeless, I had a concept of what homelessness was. I had my concept of what being homeless was based on what I went through. Based on what I've been through. So when I was looking at people or projecting on the people, I was trying to give them when I'm in that space with myself, I'm only going to give based on that level of context. That means if I feel like I'm thirsty, motherfucker needs some water, I'm gonna give a motherfucker water. The next time I see a homeless person, I'm gonna give him water. Instead of listening to what the homeless motherfucker says. There was a homeless dude up the street from, like, when I was on my run. I had my water in my backpack, and he was like, he wanted a beer. He said, I ain't gonna hold you, bro. All I really want is a beer. I was like, you do know it's a little hot outside. Yeah, I'm gonna find some shade. I'm gonna sit there and sip a beer. I was like, all right, cool, I got you. I went into the store. I bought 4 bottles of water. I bought 4 bottles of the Icelandic, the big bottles of water, and I bought this nigga 2 Bud Lights. Bought this nigga 2 Bud Lights and 2 bottles of water. And I put the change from whatever I did. I put it in the bag and I handed it to him. He was like, brother, you left the change and your water in here. I said, no, that's for you. That's for you. He was like, man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I wasn't doing that from the concept of, oh my God, I know what it feels like to be homeless and I'm not acting from that space. This is how you stay within that indirect or that impulse. Your impulse to do something for somebody is only going to be based on what you've been through. If you get stuck within that impulse of only doing things based on what motherfuckers been through, guess what you're going to attract? Motherfuckers that are going through different concepts of what you've been through. So your context is always going to be trying to form some shit to serve you, only to serve you to stay in the space that you're at. But if I'm going directly, and I hand that, while I was on my run, I saw my man sitting there. Went into the store, gave that, I continued my run. I was still in my direct flow. It's funny, my brother Neutral Flow came in. I was in my direct flow. I was in my direct flow of my structure. That space was held. So now when I'm now creating these spaces, the space naturally does, my space is based on my availability. So now I'm not triggered if let's say the next time I go out and I don't have it. Now I'm not triggered to be like, yo, I ain't got nothing. I ain't got it today, bro. And I don't feel bad for it. I don't feel upset about it. I'm implementing authenticity. Now I'm being direct. I'm putting direct authenticity. How many times you sat there and you saw the homeless motherfucker sitting on the corner and you were like, man, I ain't getting that nigga nothing. That nigga wants some money for some drugs. And that nigga need to be finding a job. And get that motherfucker exactly what the fuck you want. It's not me, it's not my decision to do, it's not my decision to change up, to put something into a certain space. This is how you deny things coming back to you. This is how you deny some shit coming back to you the way that it needs to come back to you. The way that it's going to come back to you. That's how you deny that. That's how you deny that flow. Deny that shit coming back to me. That's how you deny that shit. Because you're used to, you want it to be a certain way. You looking for a certain big booty bitch. I'll use another example. I have a brother. I've known this nigga for most of my damn life. He's gotten everything that he's ever wanted. Everything that he's ever wanted. Everything that he's ever wanted. When we were like in that space of, it was based on trauma bonding, our family narratives and shit were similar. I tried everything in my power. Everything that I learned, I was trying to dump on him. I was trying to dump everything on him. Like, yo, we got to do this and we got to do this. And then I'm not realizing why I'm doing it. I'm indirectly trying to befriend or stay bonded or attached to this person because of some shit that I still got unresolved with, like my own brother, my own blood brother. So everything comes into my space based on that. And this is how you allow this shit doesn't come to you positive or negative. It comes to you based on indirect or directly. Shit don't come to you positive or negative. Oh my God, all this negative stuff is happening inside of my life. Or all of this positive stuff is happening inside of my life. No. It comes to you based on direct or indirect. You have an indirect balance of the positive and your negatives already, or you already have the positive aspects of your positive and negative inside of that flow. Whatever structures needed, like for an example. Let's go deeper into these examples. I love breaking down the examples. Let's go deeper into an example. If I keep getting into relationships If I'm getting into these relationships, I keep getting into these spaces. We in the space. We in the space. If I'm sitting inside of a space with myself, and let's say for the aspect of how I define money. I've talked about this before in my previous pieces. How I used to define money. Until I sit with the direct reason of how I define money, I would keep using money the same exact way. That means the currency or the flow of that energy coming into my space would be the same way. Until I define how I made money. The negative and the positive. The negative that begot the positive. The negative of trying to have acceptance. My idea of acceptance. My idea of value. My validation of my value. My validation of my value. Who I was. Where I was at in that point in time. Created those positive aspects or the results. That's what I attracted. I had an indirect understanding of my emotional intelligence. So I had an indirect understanding. My indirect understanding of emotional intelligence created the byproduct that was the indirect aspects, the indirect understanding of financial literacy, of the byproduct. When you're stuck within a concept, you're not going to look at you look at the byproduct as something, you look at the byproduct, i.e. the result, and you're going to shun the result. But that result is telling you exactly what the fuck you need to do next. If I'm in a state of being indirect, everything's going to come to me directly to what is direct will be the result. If I'm sitting in a state of being direct with oneself, then everything's going to come to me indirectly so I can further expand. Direction, structure, flow, direct structure, flow. Masculine, feminine imbalance creates expansion. It creates expansion. It creates the space of expansion. It creates the space of growth. So any space I was holding, like use the example, I didn't understand what the fuck money was, how a bank account worked, none of that shit. I didn't really understand how a bank account worked. I was stuck on the they use this, and this. So when it came time to me to do certain things, it was only based on if I have it. I'm not going to get the bank account right now because I don't have the money. I'm not at the result that I want. That shit's never going to come. It's going to come in ink. It's going to come in fragments. It's going to come in these fragments. So, okay, cool. I made $100 this week. I made $100 yesterday. I made this. But now, since it's not coming to me, I'm not in a direct space in the direct flow with myself, and it's coming to me in this indirect. Since I'm in an indirect state with myself, or in a concept of what I want to do with saving money and building shit, when it's coming to me directly, I must use it indirectly. That means I must formulate a concept or a reason of why I need to do it. Well, I need that to do it. So now, of course, now I'm hungry. Damn, man, I'm hungry. I got to eat some food. I ain't eaten in a couple of days. Man, you know what? I deserve to go out and eat. I deserve to go out and eat a big ass meal. I deserve to go fucking splurge. No. Your entitlement is showing. Your entitlement is showing. I'm tired of not eating. I'm tired of not doing this, and this. I'm tired of doing the baby ass route. Of course. Because you've been stuck in a state of entitlement indirectly. So now you're going to go blow $100, $200 on some fucking food. And now you sitting there, that bill, whatever was due is still due. But since you love moving on the impulse or the concept, you're like, well, this is what the rich people do. This is what they do. This is what they do. This is what they do with money. This is what they would do with money. And then all of a sudden now on your timeline, you got a motherfucker say you got to spend money to make money. And then you're like, yeah, I'm going to spend money to make money. The spend is a buzzword meaning the aspects of investing. What am I spending my money in? On impulse or on the concept, or am I spending it based on investment? Am I still stuck on the aspect I'm tired of sacrificing? Or have I evaluated myself like, you know what? I'm not sacrificing, I'm investing. I have to step out of the old concept or the old idea of myself to come into the alignment. Now when I step into that new state of alignment, my entire, all of my definitions and everything I'm going to do is going to change. This is why we always go into the aspects of words of affirmations and speaking your affirmations and speaking your affirmations. You can speak the affirmation, but how are you defining that affirmation? I can speak every affirmation I want, but how am I defining that affirmation? How am I reinforcing that affirmation? Emotionally, psychologically, physically? How am I reinforcing it? Or am I leaving it to the chance? I'm gonna leave this shit to my ancestors. I'm about to leave my money troubles to my ancestors. All right, tell me about your ancestors. Tell me about your ancestors. Your direct ancestors. That means from this lineage of yourself or your ancestors. Because I have 3 ancestors directly that I really had to work with and talk to, have conversations with, that had alcohol problems, they had addiction problems, they had alcohol problems, they had some issues. They had some fucking issues. So if I'm just leaving it to the ancestors, and I'm indirect with leaving it to the ancestors, I have a concept of what money is. I have a cousin that always talked about getting rich quick. Nigga's an ancestor now. He talking about getting rich quick all the fucking time. So now if I'm having this conversation and I'm wondering why I'm having all these get rich quick schemes, they're not schemes, but they're get rich quick ideas or to get money really fast, why am I having that conversation? Why am I jumping all around trying to get all this shit done? Because I left it to my ancestors. I'm not being direct. I'm not being direct. So I'm not learning to access what I need to access. I'm just stuck on, I'm going to use this ancestor for this and that for this. I'm not being direct with myself. I haven't had that conversation. Because best believe, I've talked about this before, you got some ancestors that are stuck within that lower aspects of the realm that want to relive, that want to live their life. They still want to live. They still want to live. You haven't not given them forgiveness, or in the aspects, then we go to the aspects of when you're doing the internal work and you're dealing with them, you're like, you know what? I forgive myself for my human condition. I forgive you for your human condition. It's not your fault that grandma did this and that your dad wasn't there and da 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 da. Now I'm having a conversation with them. I gotta have that conversation with them before I've done any of my work, and I had to learn that shit. Exactly. I had to learn that shit. Before I went public, use this example. Before I went public with the aspects of, okay, cool, I'm offering shadow work therapy, readings, shadow work therapy, getting deep into the aspects of your shadow therapy, providing all of these aspects. I really had to sit down with myself first and be like, you know what? Yeah, I gotta relinquish some, I gotta deal with some shit first. Because that should have come out and bring into the attraction. Because when I was looking at it, I'm looking at like I'm looking at a lot of my first clients. A lot of my first clients, the ones I was learning with. A lot of my first clients, the reason that I was attracting those clients and learning the lessons in that space and learning how to talk and learning how to navigate through that space is because they were the direct results of certain ancestors. They were the results of certain ancestors. So if I had a client, use an example, if I had a client that did me fucking dirty that did me dirty, or like I was like, okay, cool, it costs this much for this, this, and this. And like, let's say I do a reading, and I had to learn from doing the readings. I did a reading for them, and they were like, oh my God, thank you for doing the reading. When I get paid, I'm gonna do it. And then Friday come, and then they don't pay. I had to learn how to forgive them. I had to learn how to forgive theirs. Because I have to look back at, I had cousins and shit that did the same shit. I had cousins and I had relatives that did the same shit. I'm calling all my ancestors, got the altars up and shit. And all of this shit is coming through. This shit is being cleared out first. All of that shit is being, I had to clear that shit out first. When you're coming into the aspects of the direct flow with yourself, you're understanding that, I tell everybody this shit all the fucking time. The first bunch of shit that's gonna come up, all that shit that's gonna come up, all the bullshit, the chaos, all that shit that come up, all that bullshit, that's the shit that gotta be cleared out first. So your abundance ritual work, and your prosperity ritual work, and your love ritual work, and your soul tie ritual work, and your abundance for some money worked, and all of those rituals worked. You're just not, because you're not being direct with yourself, you're used to the impulse, you didn't like the result that came up. I didn't like the result that came up in my first ever prosperity ritual. Because my first prosperity ritual came up that same week, my job cut my hours and fucking, I got cut from 40 hours to like 20 some odd hours. I'm getting in an argument with the girl I was with at the fucking time about money. All of these things came up based on prosperity. I'm like, man, my shit didn't work. I was like, wait, let me sit with this. It did work. Because I have to understand that I was already in a state of prosperity. I was already in a state of prosperity. I was already in a state of abundance. I was already in a state of wealth. I was already in that state. That is the two states. I was already in those states. But in order for me to bring in anything into this new space clearly, I had to deal with what I was the energetic aspects that I was indirectly putting my impulse in and making space for. I was making space for individuals in my space to validate, okay, I got the job before I got the shorty, I got the money, I got the bag. So yeah, my life is good. So that's what I defined as good. But in reality, it was like, this person is in this space because they're going to validate that if they do what I say, then I can show my mother that, or I can show my cousins, I can show all the bitches from high school what it's like to be with me. So I'm stuck on the aspect, I'm not breaking a cycle, I'm just keeping the cycle going. I'm not breaking anything. I'm just keeping this shit going. If it work, it work. If it don't work, then it don't work. Now I got Shorty. Shorty done worked 40 plus hours and shit. Shorty done worked all these hours. She making all the money. And now, what am I doing? Yay, my shit worked. Shorty bringing in the bag. All I'm doing is staying in a state of indirectly understanding that I'm codependent. I'm codependent. I have codependency issues. The codependency issue codependency is not a fucking problem. 1 second. The codependency is not an issue as long as I'm getting something from it. The codependency is the same shit until I'm getting something from it. But when it's not serving me any purpose, then it doesn't work. It's always fucking working. You just have to clear out your shit. You ain't being direct with your shit. This is when we talk about you clearing your intentions. But I cleared my space, and I cleared the space, and I did this, and I did this, and I did all my shit, and then I lit my candle, and I focused on it for 7 days, and then this happened. What else happened during that time? In that 7 days, when you lit your green candle, and you were sitting there in that space, what all happened? You didn't want to talk about the conversation you had with the now ex. You didn't want to have that conversation. That was based on that ritual. That's the shit that was one of your blocks. That's what you form. That's the concept. That's what I need a real nigga in my life and do this and this. To do what? To do what? To do what? Because if you want someone to come directly into your life, the first thing they're going to ask you is they're going to ask you those real questions that you've not been asking yourself. And that takes the aspects. This is when we get into the aspects of I got the post the other day. I want nobody to submit to me. I don't want no one to submit to me. I think that sounds childish as fuck. I don't want no one to submit to me. Because if somebody externally submits to me before submitting to themselves, as long as I'm doing some shit, they'll always be inside of that space. They'll never be willing, or i.e. they'll never be direct. They'll never be willing, so they'll never be direct. So everything will be based on a task. Everything will be based on a task. Reachability. Their reachability to me will be based on what tasks they can fulfill. Instead, when I really had to sit with that thought process of submitting to myself, of really submitting to myself, the first thing that I realized that I had a concept of being consistent. I had a concept of being consistent. But I didn't build the discipline behind my consistency. I was still using and navigating from the space of me I've talked about this before, of me burning myself out. I thought being consistent was to the point of burnout. I thought being accomplished was to the point of burnout. I thought all of these aspects, my concept of consistency was based on lack. Burn myself out, now I'm lacking energy. Burn myself out, now I'm lacking resource. Burn myself out, now I'm lacking power, I'm lacking energy. But when I came into the state of actually disciplining myself, becoming more consistent, it was building my space based on my consistency. So now I had to go through the triggering rhythm of like, I wish I had somebody to run down this life with me with. I had to fight that impulse. Because you say that shit, one of your realities where you still acting out that same script is going to come in. Okay, cool, they want this reality, put it there. That reality impulse becomes the now. And then I found myself, I'm 2 months in, 3 months in at the gym. I'm at the job, doing some good shit at the job. Now Shorty then came around. She smiled. She thought I was cute. And like, yay. Followed by upteen months and years going through all of this shit, only to come out to the other side and to be like, she was a narcissist and she was toxic as fuck and all of these things. The concept of that first, I'm stuck within a concept. I'm stuck within a concept. That furthest aspect of me wanting someone to submit to me was a concept that I was in fear of, and what it would look like to me to submit to something, what it would look like me to trust someone. So since I'm stuck inside of a space of I want somebody, this is, what would it look like if I put full trust into somebody? I only have the examples of the because. Remember, the concept is the because or the for. So because of this or for, or somebody wants this. Somebody only gonna trust you, and then now you get stuck in the loop. People only trust you based on what you can do for them. I'm tired of being real and nobody giving me what I'm giving back to them. What are you giving out? What are you really giving out? Are you being direct in your direction of what you putting out into the space? Or are you being indirect as fuck when you putting shit out into the space? What conversations are you really having inside of your space? How often are you really taking that inventory with yourself? All of the aspects of that basis. Are you taking inventory before you go to bed at night? Are you taking inventory before you wake up? Are you taking the assessment before you wake up? Are you taking that? What are you doing? What are you doing inside of those spaces? You have to learn in order to become. I can't say that I'm the divine masculine and be indirect as shit. I can't be indirect and inconsistent. That doesn't fit that narrative. I got a concept of it. Well, I'm gonna do it when this happens. I'm already doing it. If you look over my shoulder at that big ass pile right there, and you look at the fence, I cleared out the fence today. I cleared out the fence over there. I showed this in the beginning of the video. I cleared out the fence today. Cleared out the fence, did some shrubbery work, did some yard work today. In all of my realities, in all of the possible realities for myself, that's the same, I'm doing the same thing in all my realities. So whether in this reality I'm doing yard work, in another reality I was cleaning out my room, cleaning out the closet. In another reality I'm doing, all of my realities are in sync. So everything that's coming to me comes to the current state of where I'm at now, they're all in sync. Now, if I had the thought process in my mind of, I'm going to do that, I'm going to clear out, yeah, Zach, I'm going to clear out this shit over here, and then I don't do it, all of my realities are going to follow that same sync. So now if I'm not doing it here, my impulse is to feel like I need to be doing something still needs to be resolved. But since it's a trauma response for myself to feel like I always need to be doing something, I'm going to fill it with something that's in a less, it's always going to be lesser. It's always going to be lesser. I don't feel like doing this right there, so I'm going to go do this over there. It's always going to be something lesser. Every time you move on that impulse, that shit becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. Because all it is the projection of your light. If I'm not dealing with the aspects of that shadow, if you're not dealing with that shadow, you're not really dealing with the emotional semantics of your fucking shadow. You're not going into the emotional aspects of your shadow and really doing that internal work. What do you think you're going to get? Where you think you're going to get, what you think you're going to get, how you think it's going to be. Why you think you keep getting the same shit every fucking day? Because you're not doing the aspects of the work. You're trying to still make room when you don't have the space automatically held. When you start creating those spaces from the heart space, you create a space that's based on the principles of your growth, your expansion, your growth, your expansion, what you really want to do, the direct flow, the direct structure. That means if you run into somebody that's like, yo, you really need to sit down and when the last time you looked over your books, and when the last time you looked over this, so when and you getting triggered by that shit, you need to sit with that. That's when it's time to sit with it. I don't know how many times that shit has happened to me. Up until the point to where now there's the healing process. Then there's the building process. Being a healer, being a therapist, being the shadow shaman, being all of these, whatever motherfuckers want to identify it as. All of that's based on self-healing. It's direct, so it's self-healing. That means I'm not worried about, use an example as we wind it down. Use an example. I remember the first time I was doing lives, I used to have the evangelist preacher and the super woke niggas and the super woke bitches and all of these motherfuckers all up in my shit. All up in my shit. I'm going to their conversation. They're driving my they're driving what I'm saying and shit. I'm like, damn, I gotta battle all these niggas. In reality, when I sat with it, I realized that I wasn't being direct. I wasn't being direct. And since I wasn't being direct, what the hell would I attract? Shit that was being indirect. Shit that would take me off of my space. But now when I'm inside the space and I'm being more direct, the flow changes. The flow changes. They fall. I don't know the last time that I had a ephod to eat the spirits have told me to come to you with the message about your childhood. I haven't had that happen anymore. As you become more direct, that shit changes. But you gotta sit in the aspects of becoming direct. Acquiring all of the pretty adornments, that's you still staying indirect. That's you sitting there, and you like, yeah, I'm this, and this, but you indirectly still doing the shit that you used to do. Trauma response. It's like when I break down the aspects of like when you laugh to hide back tears. I was laughing so I wouldn't cry. I was laughing so I didn't cry. I was laughing so no one saw my pain. What do you think you created? You created a reality where that became normal. So then the moment that you wanted somebody to actually sit down with your feelings, or you wanted to sit down with your emotions and actually go through that process, motherfucker laughed you in your face. And then you feel mad. Why are you mad? You created that space. You created it. It's time to learn it. That's what you're learning. When I tell people all the time, I'm hardly ever mad. You'll never see me really mad. You'll never see me upset. I can get disappointed as a mother. I'll be disappointed. I can get disgusted. I can be disgusted. I can be disappointed. Shit of that nature. But I'm not gonna be mad at anybody. I'll be disappointed. I can be disappointed. But that's a learning moment for me. Let me learn this. Let me teach in this space. What seed has been planted? How is this? What am I learning inside of that space? Because that's my whole fucking job. That's my whole fucking purpose. I don't live this. I'm not doing this for a living. I live this. The spaces that I've created that are in holding, they're based on my structure and my standard. If somebody says, ooh, I want that job, all right, cool, you can have that job. You can get it. There's the job, there's the application, there's the desk. Go sit at the desk. I'm already in direct flow. So naturally, if they get triggered by something that I do, it was needed. And I can accept that. I don't have to, when you get into the space of being direct, you realize that you can accept something without partaking in it. I can accept somebody, what they do, everything that a motherfucker does. That don't mean I gotta partake in it. That don't mean I gotta that don't mean I gotta go, man, I ain't gotta say none of that shit. All I gotta do is just keep moving. Direct. That directness. You wanna be direct or you wanna be indirect? My favorite three things. Healing is destructive. Healing is destructive. You are deserving, but you're not entitled. And this level of honesty is going to force you into that true transparency so you can actually start working in the aspects of that vulnerability. I desire you to be the motherfucking best. I desire you to be the motherfucking best. I'm going to sit here and decide if I'm going to drag that around. No, I'm going to wait till the morning, whatever. Everything with me from readings, consultations, setting up services. Oh, Lord. And that directness of someone putting a baby in you by 2023 is becoming the aspects of what this, yeah. Sitting in that space, you have that choice. You always have the choice. You always have the chance. From that choice that you make, from the chance that you have that choice you gonna make. And from that choice, you're gonna formulate some conditions. Are those conditions gonna be indirect? That means based on a concept of what you think the world should be for you, or are you gonna be direct and you're gonna accept that the conditions of what you need to go work on? I've never been more at peace and I've never been in the more state of the state that I'm in till now. I look back at, if you go look at Dame Dash's interview, I'm putting the link up for the interview later. That he did an interview. And he was like, yo, I'm done. I was working on the dreams that I had back when I was a teenager, I fulfilled through Rockefeller and things of that nature. The dream, your dream don't die. Let's say something inspirational before we get out. Your dream don't die until you fulfilled it. Your dream don't die until you fulfilled it. The shit that I did back when, from high school to college, all of the elements inside of that space, I've done to do this. And now that I'm sitting in this space, everything that I wanted in that space to that next space, I'm doing now. That's how you become present. I talked about this on Monday. This year, when my pops transitioned in January, between January and now, my mom has started her healing process. My brother did his first meditation and is now in his healing process. And my little sister, she came into her healing process. All I had to do was show up. All I had to do was show up. When you're in direct, when you're in the state of the direct flow and structure, all you got to do is show up. That was over 15 plus years of work to create that space. So don't get all, oh my God, it should have happened 3 months ago. Why? Why should it have happened 3 months ago? My life should have been like this and I should have had this, this, and this. Maybe that wasn't for you. You talking about all I wanted was a family type shit. Maybe that wasn't for you. Did you ever think of, and we don't get deeper into that next, we don't get deeper into that throughout the bill. We don't get deeper into that throughout the week. As always, above the top of the link, right up top, is 2 links. Above the top is 2 links, 2 different links. Services, booking 1. Support, booking the other. And I forgot to put the Occult Alchemy link up there as well. Y'all go check out the Occult Alchemy store as well. Go check out the Occult Alchemy store. Got a couple of new prints I'm about to drop in there. I'm dropping a Divinely Dark collection. I'm about to really push the envelope on what I can put on a t-shirt. I'm about to really push the envelope of what I can put on a damn shirt. Yeah, if you're aware with me, I'm gonna push the envelope when I'm put on a t-shirt. But yeah, I blessed with a blessing for y'all to step through, the blessing for y'all to come through. Good, happy solar return. Everybody, you exactly where you need to be. I love you. We love us. Ashe.